If you're evil and you start off your next life as a flesh-fat monster and progress up the ranks, what happens if you're good, and does anyone ever just die and end up in their god's realm? This is a very good question. Thanks, Ghastly Grinner, and also thank you for being a regular commenter on the videos. I really appreciate it. So, back when the devils came to be, the supernatural beings were less focused on good and evil, rather they were very focused on the relative worth of law and chaos. In the matter of devils versus demons, for instance, it is the two factions, one lawful and one chaotic, and the blood war was largely about determining the brute superiority of one or the other. But, due to Asmodeus's deal with the gods, it was perpetuated far, far longer than it ever would have been, due to it gaining Asmodeus's right to take souls who were to be punished. And there's a lot of backstory and prehistory that goes into this, including the Rod of Seven Parts and the Air Lords and primordials and alien gods and things. But that's beyond the point. Eventually, Asmodeus consolidated his power, absorbed the divine essence of the god Azuth, and finally probably has less need for the souls contained in his realm. But back to the question. Not all evil people automatically go to the nine hells when they die. In fact, many don't. A person who was evil in life and worshipped an evil god would go to the domain of that god after death. Those who proclaim themselves as good, but really lead a life of evil, are the ones who go to hell. See, they've broken promises, they've lied, they've presented themselves as servants of the light, and the gods, good and evil, have decreed that this breaks their law. If a person is doing evil out of service to an evil god, that god is bound by divine law to take on those souls, take them in, and the power they grant. Well, so what makes souls so valuable to deities, you may ask? Well, such a person who is floating in limbo and decides which direction is up and down, or the Githzerai, who can stabilize the chaos in limbo just by disciplined concentration. So it's morphic, divinely morphic they call it. The power of a soul to observe and influence reality is a quantum observation effect. Gods need the power to manipulate reality on a vast scale, and they need to focus, or the focus of souls to do it, though it is enough that the souls are given agency to the god by basically believing that the god can do mighty things. I imagine it's pretty complicated, but that's the power of the soul in a nutshell. They are the batteries of creation, and they never run out of juice as long as they can focus on something and interact. There's no point in putting the soul in a void, like putting them in containers and stuff. The soul can't function and will just go batshit crazy, or they go catatonic and just shut down. So gods create realms that satisfy those souls with subjective reality in tune of what that god is all about. And this is why gods bring those who share their views, obey their laws, follow their ideals, into their realm. Essentially, the divine realms are a matrix that is constructed by the gods to contain the souls of their divinely morphic batteries, which is the souls. I hope that makes sense. Those who have broken the law, who have lied, victimized, and acted out of self-interest, who have denied the agency of the gods and sought supernatural power for themselves, they are the ones who go to the nine hells, and the devils make deals, influence, coerce, and swindle mortals into breaking that law as often as they can. The mortal has the power to say no, even if it would result in their death. They can deny the devils and just obey a divine law. A devil is reluctant to up and murder a mortal who is refusing to make a deal. Thus, they do their homework. They take their time, they set all the parts in motion, and create the illusion that the mortal has no other choice, when in reality, death and transportation to the god's domain is infinitely more preferable to the condemnation of the nine hells. See, the devils are, in their way, just testing the soul of the person for honesty, because the gods don't want a soul to sneak their way into their domain if they don't share the god's purpose, because they're not going to get the power of belief out of that soul. So why would they put them in this thing that they've spent all this enormous effort making if the soul is not actually true, if it's a lie, if it's an illusion. So the devils really are performing a service that the gods have agreed needs to be performed. They need to test mortals, and they need to punish those who are false, who have broken the law, who are representing themselves as something which they aren't. So that's basically that. And that's also why devils just don't take and kill everybody. Most who wind up in the nine hells are stripped of all their self-awareness and memory and incarnated as wretched lemures to face eons of torture, savagery, abuse and deprivation, including being torn apart and eaten by the devils over and over again. Some will never know any other fate. Those who show promise, though, might begin the long and precarious climb up the rigid hierarchy of the nine hells, because this is, after all, a place of absolute law, lawful evil, and as inexorable as the world cogs of Mechanus, just far more brutal and cruel. The only joys to be had in hell is satisfaction at the misfortune of others and absolute servitude from those beneath you, and, I suppose, knowing that if you have the law on your side, you really do have the upper hand in the nine hells. I guess the takeaway message is that it pays to give the gods their due, and in D&D it matters less that you are good or evil as long as you basically own it and be consistent. You can be the perfect example of a lawful evil person and steer clear of the nine hells just by making the offerings to Bane and observing his rules, and you're good to go. He's a lawful evil god. If you present yourself as a follower of Torm and go around breaking laws in secret and doing dirty deeds, you're buying yourself an express ticket to Avernus. I hope that does a little bit to clear that up, and I do welcome any comments you may have on this topic and any others that crop up as we talk about D&D monsters, realms, and ecologies. That was a fascinating question. I welcome the opportunity to hopefully clarify exactly what the roles of the devils are and why the gods allow this to happen. Thanks for listening.